Streets are calling, stealing from the light.
Hey guys, my name is Jordan Downey and I'm the director of Critters Bounty Hunter. If you haven't seen the short film, go ahead and pause here and check it out on my YouTube channel, because what I'm going to do now is walk you through a step-by-step process for how we made the film. You're watching part 5 of a 6-part series detailing the post-production process, including editing, creating the score, and the complicated visual effects needed for the bounty hunter's glowing head. We ended up shooting about 1.5 terabytes of footage for the short film. We edited the movie in Adobe Premiere and used Adobe After Effects to do all of the head effects. We used Photoshop and a few other apps to do some of the other elements like the title cards, but for the most part we did everything in Premiere and After Effects. It only took me about a week or two to have a finished cut of the movie. We shot it pretty lean and had already done so much planning, so I knew exactly how it was going to cut together when we filmed. I wanted to get the edit finished as fast as possible so that we could start working on the glowing head effect as well as the music, both of which were going to take a long time. This is what the timeline looks like in After Effects, where we created the digital head effect. Now I'm going to walk you through a few steps that show exactly how we landed on the final effect. All of the credit for the head glowing effect goes to Kevin. He did 99% of the work. I sat there, I gave notes, and we talked through a lot of things, but really all of the credit goes to him. That said, it was a terrifying experience creating that head because we weren't sure for the longest time if it was going to work. I remember after we finished the short, debating even releasing it online because it wasn't good enough. The biggest problem, I think, is that we had worked on this for days and hours and weeks on end. We couldn't see anything other than the flaws in it. We'd been staring at it over and over and over, and we knew where it came from, and it was hard for us to see the finished product. Sometimes you need to step away from something creative that you're doing so that you can see it with a fresh set of eyes. And we unfortunately didn't have that. We were really in it. When it came out, thankfully it worked great, but we were really concerned throughout the process when we made that head effect. The idea of the head effect would be that it had a life of its own. The way the head effect was actually done was by taking a cloud texture, wrapping that around the green screen hood, and giving it a swirling kind of texture and feel to it. That gave it these little wisps and life, that it was morphing and moving, and it was some sort of an amoeba, a living thing that it could transform and change into anything that you told it to, kind of like a hologram on his head. The hard part about that, though, was that anytime the bounty hunter looked left or right, we had to track that cloud moving texture with the movement of the bounty hunter so that it didn't look like it was moving independent, but that instead it was locked onto his body and part of him. That was difficult to pull off, and most of it was done manually by Kevin just slowly tweaking until it felt real to the eye. It took a really long time to pull off the effect and to get it to look like it does in the finished film. The digital elements needed to complete the chair explosion were actually all done in Adobe Premiere. It was a combination of dust hits, muzzle flashes, lightning strikes, and a few other elements that really gave it that final enhanced look that you see in the completed film. Those same overlays were applied to the critter eggs being blown up because we didn't have the ability to detonate anything on set, so those same elements were added to the critter egg explosion as well. The digital readout that you see on the side of the bounty hunter's gun was done in 2 parts. The second part, which you see in a close-up when the bounty hunter kneels down next to the critter corpse, is done in After Effects. That was all just tracked onto the side, and we just added some numbers and letters there that felt alien. If you rewind a few moments earlier when the bounty hunter is walking up the steps, you can actually see the gun glow for just a few frames. Now that was done in Adobe Premiere. We didn't even actually need to track that. It was literally just a few JPEGs put in the right spot at the right time. All of the sound design and sound effects were actually done in Adobe Premiere right there in the editing software. We didn't want to add an extra step and go to Pro Tools, and I have a hard drive with all the sound effects, so it was just easier to plug everything into the editing software and not worry about an added step. I used a lot of jingling keys in the bounty hunter design so that when he walks, it feels like there's some sort of loose metal on him, and every footstep he takes gives a little bit of a hint of something metallic on his armor. In a few cases, I actually did keep the sound effects used in the Critters movies, like the cannon extending and firing. I felt like those were already perfect in the movies and we didn't need to create anything new for that. All of the critter voices were done by me by soundproofing a closet and recording them on a nice microphone. One of the most exciting parts about making any movie is the soundtrack, and the scoring stage is one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of composers and movie music and soundtracks. I'm always listening to it, so this was always a part I was really looking forward to. Nick Sewell did the score to Critters Bounty Hunter, and he did a fantastic job. Start to finish, it only took him about 2 weeks. There's something scary and haunting and sci-fi about it, but it's got a little bit of fun and whimsical kind of silliness to it as well, which was really present in David Newman's score for the first Critters and even in Nicholas Pike's for Critters 2. When talking about the score, we have to discuss Power of the Night.
Power of the night. Streets are calling, stealing from the night.
That was one of my favorite songs as a kid, and I remember always trying to get a cassette or a CD of it so that I could listen to it. It was really hard to find. When we set out to make this short, I knew very early on that I wanted to find a way to incorporate that song into the short. And what better way than to cue it up right when the credits hit.
Power of the night.
So early on, I asked Nick if he would be willing to do that. Now Nick's background, before he was a film composer, is actually a lead singer of a band, so I knew he had the ability to do it. When I asked him, he jumped on it. He was super excited. Nick actually performed and sang the Power of the Night cover. He recreated the whole entire thing himself, and he did his own version. And it's awesome.
Streets are calling.
One of the questions I get asked the most about this short film is when can we hear a full version of Power of the Night? Well, there are no plans to do that right now. Sometimes it's nice to leave people wanting more, and we both kind of agreed that it's nice that it exists in the short film and isn't anything longer, but never say never, maybe one day. The last step in post-production was color correcting the movie. This was done after we had the glowing effect, sound effects, and the music in all the title cards. So we put that final gloss over the whole entire thing that really brings it to life. As you can see on set, the movie was much brighter than it appears in the final form. That was done on purpose because Kevin wanted to give it more exposure and to shoot it brighter so that later on he had more information to work with and we can always bring things down and darken it. If you shoot it too dark, you're not going to have as much information to work with for the green screen effect, and you're not going to be able to be as flexible with your coloring options later on. The look we were going for was much more of that blue look as seen in Critters 1. If you rewatch the first Critters, you really notice how blue the whole entire movie is. The other three aren't quite that way, but we did want to keep that blue look in a little bit more of a subtle approach. We didn't want to go too blue. You can see before and after how big of a difference color correction really makes to a movie. The title cards were all done in After Effects that we bought a plugin for online for I think $30 to $50. It wasn't very much. We liked the look of the title cards flying through space, so all we had to do was add in our own names and customize a few of the elements. The main Critters title card I designed in Photoshop. You can see here there were a few other versions and ideas for how this title card could appear. Ultimately, this is the one that we ended up going with. And that was it. Once we had the movie edited, all the visual effects in there, the color correction, sound design, and music, the movie was done. But the last thing I want to do is share with you guys some awesome, cool little Easter eggs that I hid throughout the movie. And I wanted to see if you could spot all the references that we put in there to the previous 4 Critters films. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this gave you a little insight into the making of Critters Bounty Hunter. If you liked this short film, make sure to check out the other shorts I've done on my YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe because I'll soon be posting behind the scenes videos for those projects too. If you have any questions or you're looking for any advice, leave me a comment and I'll try and get back to you. Thanks again.